So new emails show a Pfizer board member complaining to Twitter about a journalist. Alex Berenson, the journalist in question, obtained internal Twitter emails as part of his federal lawsuit against the company for banning him. Now, the platform settled in July and restored his account, but Berenson released a particularly telling message in a Substack post last Thursday. Now, you probably know the Pfizer board member who sent that message. It was none other than Scott Gottlieb, Trump's former FDA commissioner, who became a go-to source for media during the pandemic and a fixture of the broadcast coverage. Here's what Gottlieb sent to someone at Twitter, quote, "This is what's promoted on Twitter. This is why Tony needs a security detail," he wrote in August of 2021, forwarding a Berenson article posted earlier that day on the, quote, "arrogance of Anthony Fauci." Now, Twitter banned Berenson just 4 days later over alleged COVID disinformation, 4 days after getting that email from a Pfizer board member. Gottlieb, by his own admission, informally advised the Biden administration during the pandemic. Andy Slavitt, at the time a senior advisor in the Biden administration, pressured Twitter to do something about Berenson as well. Berenson went on Tucker Carlson's show last week to discuss the new evidence surrounding his ban, but to me, what's less interesting than the timing of Berenson's ban is just the existence of Gottlieb's email. Here we have Scott Gottlieb, who held high-level positions in George W. Bush's FDA before heading it up under Trump, taking it upon himself to email Twitter about Berenson, a former New York Times reporter who happened to be skeptical of the vaccines. Now, Berenson is not uncontroversial, but he's more transparent than most journalists, and his skepticism of the public-private partnership on COVID is aging better with every passing day. When his book came out about a year ago, he was totally game to explore his own mistakes over the course of the pandemic on my podcast, which I respected immensely, and we don't even pay his salary. Now try getting that out of Fauci in any meaningful way. But the arrogance Berenson wrote about makes perfect sense when you think about it. Gottlieb had the audacity to join Pfizer's board less than 3 months after leaving the FDA in 2019. Trump had the audacity to nominate him for the FDA post after Gottlieb sat on the product investment board of GlaxoSmithKline, worked at a venture capital firm that invested in pharmaceuticals, and made hundreds of thousands of dollars from drug companies for consulting and speaking fees just from 2013 to 2016. Now, whatever you make of the vaccines, Gottlieb made hundreds of thousands of dollars from Pfizer while promoting their product to the media during the pandemic. And that's whose interests he represented, even if unofficially, when he contacted Twitter about Berenson. So there you have it, a revolving door bureaucrat trying to pressure a major corporation to cut off a journalist's access to its massive speech platform, and doing it over email, seemingly unbothered by the possibility his conduct might someday be exposed. Indeed, people of this mindset are proud to police the discourse. We know this because the White House openly boasted about flagging disinformation on Facebook. The Biden campaign openly encouraged social media to censor the New York Post story on Hunter Biden. Gottlieb was asked, actually, about his email on CNBC. His response is tellingly nonsensical. Quote, "Respectful debate and dialogue is one thing and should be encouraged and protected," Gottlieb tweeted after the hit on CNBC. He continued, "But there's no place for targeted harassment and misleading dialogue, which can instigate a small but persuadable group of people to make targeted and dangerous threats." Of course, Berenson made no threats. Gottlieb is arguing that what he defines as, quote, "misleading dialogue" from Berenson could have instigated people. But banking one person's definition of, having one person's definition of, quote, "misleading dialogue" become something that is used to squelch, quote, "respectful debate" because it cuts against powerful interests actually leaves no room for that respectful debate Gottlieb purports he wants it to have. So this isn't just culture war fear-mongering either. This new mentality dominates big business, big media, and big government, meaning it directly affects the decisions that we make as consumers and voters and parents and children every single day of our lives, because it affects the information we rely on to make those decisions. Whether it's about getting boosted or how to make financial decisions or what, for instance, abortion laws are in your state, powerful interests are using the boogeyman of disinformation, as Gottlieb did, as a tool to discourage disagreement, pushing it outside the mainstream altogether and even silencing it. Funnily enough, when I interned at a conservative think tank in college, Scott Gottlieb's office was right across from my desk. He was always really nice and really friendly, and that's true of a lot of people with bad ideas, of course, and it's why corporate networks gravitate towards relatable personalities like him. But it's also kind of a good window into the mindset of a technocrat, someone who sees themselves as one of our benevolent betters, who can fly from building to building like an intellectual Superman, rescuing people from the ravages of skepticism. The concentrated power of Silicon Valley is a new tool in the technocrats' arsenal. With emails or calls to just 2 or 3 companies, they can easily exert pressure or control over massive information pipelines to tens of millions of people. If they weren't also so cozy with the press, there would be a disincentive to meddle in those companies' business inappropriately for fear of being exposed. But the media cheerleads that collusion now under the same technocratic mentality that the public needs protection from ideas that challenge elite dogma. Legitimate disinformation is an opportunity to show your work. Sometimes that's easier than others, but when people don't want to show their work at all, we should be very suspicious. This isn't just some abstract debate for pundits to wax on about. This mentality is hurting us on a daily basis. An easy way out is simply for the media to start stigmatizing this kind of conduct from people in big government and big business, discouraging them from doing it again. But our current media cheerleads it, so we're probably a long way from any improvement. It should be really embarrassing for Scott Gottlieb.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.